If you have ever wondered just how profound of an effect association with the Jehovah's Witness organization has on a person's mind, boy howdy hey, I've got the video for you, because the Jehovah's Witnesses just released a brand new Watchtower that in my mind perfectly shows how crazy the Jehovah's Witness mindset is. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally and today we are looking at the April 2026 Watchtower. I'm actually going to make a couple videos on this one because this bad boy is packed full of information. Quickly before we get into it, don't forget to drop a like on the video. It genuinely helps it get out to more people on YouTube. It's the easiest and freest way that you can help support the channel and is very much appreciated. Also consider subscribing if you're not subscribed already. Yep, that's about it. Let's get right into this thing. Now, briefly, I just wanted to say two words about this picture here on the cover because it's something that always makes me giggle just a little bit, and that is how they portray angels. This is showing how Jesus and his horde of angels are going to come down at Armageddon and be shooting these theoretical bows and arrows at people that are shooting guns at them. But that's not what we're going to get into exactly here, but I find it funny that when they portray angels, they always have a very specific archetype. They are white guys with beards. In Jehovah's Witness literature and publications, if you see an angel, you can bet your sweet dollar that it will be a white guy with a beard. Now, why is this funny? Well, there are Jehovah's Witnesses who think in their minds that they are going to be one of the 144,000 that will be resurrected to heaven. And these don't preclude anyone based on their skin color or gender. So if you are a black woman and you think that you are part of the anointed and are going to be raised up into heaven, apparently you're going to just change into being a white guy with a beard. And, you can just run the simulation through every variation of that. But I think one of the funniest ones to think about is one of the governing body members, Samuel Hurd. When this guy closes his eyes and imagines himself being raised into heaven, and he's famous for having his quote,
"So when the anointed are called to heaven, one of the first assignments is to fight." Yeah. Now that's interesting. Some of us were fighters before we became true Christians. Some even served in various branches of the military. Didn't they, Brother Morris?
That bad boy is ready to fight, but before Jesus is going to allow Samuel Hurd to fight alongside him at the Battle of Armageddon, Jesus has got some work to do. He's got to go into the character creator and make a few adjustments to turn Samuel Hurd from this into this. I just think it's absolutely hysterical that Watchtower can claim to not be sexist or racist, and yet they also say that, the ideal human, the perfect version, when someone goes to heaven and they achieve eternity and perfection, that's going to necessitate making a few little adjustments, just on the fringes though, nothing too big. Anyway, let's get into the real articles that I want to talk about. So we're going to come out firing here with the God of truth always fulfills his purpose. We live in a world dominated by Satan. Lies, deception, and betrayal are commonplace. It can be hard to know whom to trust. Businessmen cheat their competitors. Advertisers mislead consumers about the products they are promoting. And some people have found that they cannot even count on their close friends to keep their word. Yet how reassuring it is to know that we can always put our trust in Jehovah. He is the God of truth. So, what are qualities associated with Satan in his world? Well, lies, deception, misleading information, just like those snaky advertisers. And God is a God of truth. But these two things don't match when you're trying to see which side of the chessboard here that Jehovah's Witnesses belong on. Do they belong on Satan's side or do they belong on Jehovah's side? Well, if he's a God of truth and he rejects lies, then surely the Jehovah's Witnesses would never use misleading information, even trying to scare people, and just blatantly lying to them in order to protect themselves, would they?
Another way we can contribute to the oneness, rejecting false stories that are designed to separate us from Jehovah's organization. As an example, think about the apostate-driven lies and dishonesties that Jehovah's organization is permissive toward pedophiles. I mean, that is ridiculous, isn't it? If anybody takes action against someone who would threaten our young ones and takes action to protect our young ones, it's Jehovah's organization. We reject outright such lies.
Many months later.
Mr. Jackson, and in asking this question, let me make it clear, I'm not suggesting it's peculiar to the Jehovah's Witness organization. There are many, many organizations in this position. But do you accept that the Jehovah's Witness organization has a problem with child abuse amongst its members?
I accept that child abuse is a problem right throughout the community, and it's something that we've had to deal with as well.
Many of the efforts that are being made by different people and organizations to highlight the issue of child sexual abuse and try and find solutions are genuine efforts to improve the situation?
I do accept that, and that's why I'm happy to testify.
And that such efforts are not necessarily an attack on your organization or its system of beliefs?
We understand that too.
You described earlier in your testimony that the work of this Royal Commission is beneficial. Do you accept then that the Royal Commission's efforts are genuine and well-intentioned?
I certainly do. And that's why we came into the Royal Commission hoping that collectively something would come forward that would help us as well as everybody else.
And would you disagree then with anyone who said that the efforts to highlight and deal with child sexual abuse in the Jehovah's Witness Church is engaging in apostate lies?
So if the Jehovah's Witnesses are on the God side of the checkerboard here, can't remember if I said chess or checkers, if I'm completely honest with you, but I guess it's immaterial. They wouldn't use a outright lie when it comes to questions about how they handle accusations of abuse within their organization. And yet continually over the years, they have said, we don't have any problems. In fact, we are better than everyone else. We are the best organization here on planet Earth for child safeguarding.
While we cannot control everything that an individual might say, it is clear that over the decades, protecting children from abuse is a top priority for this organization. We are proud of our reputation in this regard.
And yet, in the background, and the people saying this, that, boisterously proclaiming it, they know damn well the real situation that's going on. And they use a fear tactic, a scare tactic for Jehovah's Witnesses that, oh, those are just apostate lies. No, those are the Satan's little agents out there lying. Then the article continues about why we can trust the God of truth, how he has a good record of telling the truth, blah, 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 blah. Just as a point of reference, we need to establish something that we'll talk about when we get into the next article. So this is going to be this picture here and then what's going on in paragraph 8. What evidence gives us confidence that God's purpose to bring an end to Satan and his wicked followers will be fulfilled? In 1914, Jesus started the war against Satan the devil and his demons and cast them down to earth. Since 1914, Satan's attention has been focused on the earth, and as a result, world conditions have gone from bad to worse. Indeed, woe for the earth. So keep that in the back of your mind. This little picture of Satan portrayed as a dragon being hurled down to the earth. By whom? by Jesus. Jesus was following God's instructions, and he got rid of Satan and confined him down here to planet Earth for humans to deal with now. Now Satan and all of his evil is our problem to deal with. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we go forward. Now, let's go over to paragraph 10, and we'll really get a good picture into the Jehovah's Witness mindset. Although Jehovah uses humans to tell others about the good news, the angels are involved in gathering honest-hearted people into the Christian congregation. This witnessing work exposes the lies taught by Babylon the Great, the world empire of false religion, which the devil has used for centuries to spread lies about Jehovah. Soon, all false religions will be completely destroyed, and all who love the God of truth will give him the glory that he so richly deserves. So this is just the old Wally smell test here, so take it with a grain of salt. But when I look at the history of and the current landscape of religious division, I'm specifically talking about like Christian, anyone that would consider themselves Christian. I have eyes, I have ears, I can watch the news. I know that this wouldn't be the case everywhere in the world, but amongst Christian religions, I see progress as far as having more working towards a common goal, if you will. Less religious division, almost than there's been in, ever. Because you don't actually have to go that far back in time to plop yourself into a world where if you aren't the same religion as someone, then you are not going to be eligible to enter that family via marriage. Oh, sorry, you're not a Catholic, you're not a Baptist, you're not whatever the case is. We will not have them in our family. You don't actually have to go that far back. Even within a community, just being accepted into a larger community. Again, in the past, everyone in that community probably went to the same church. They all had the same belief systems, and they sort of congregated together in those spheres. Even people's employment would be affected by what religion they were. And it's not that far into the past. And now, here in 2026, I see a landscape where that would be a lot to take in if there were a massive public, movement to go back towards those days where it's like, no, you're not marrying my daughter because you're not a Catholic, So in that context, what you see the direction that the world is going, here you have the Jehovah's Witnesses. And they are sticking to the old way. This witnessing work exposes the lies taught by Babylon the Great, the world empire of false religion that the devil is using, this, that, and the third. They are encouraging this religious division. They want those battle lines to be drawn. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, there ain't no chance that you are going to intermingle through marriage, and if someone wants to do that, they will just kick them out. They're like, no, you cannot. If it's like, hey, my daughter, you will not marry someone that's not a Jehovah's Witness, and if you do, I am going to shun you and I'll never talk to you ever again. They are still living in that world. They refuse to look at the negative effects that has on a community and a society. They refuse to be moved to change any of these doctrines that they have. So I just find it really interesting how they are still talking about this world empire of false religion and how bad they are. And I find it especially interesting because the Jehovah's Witnesses are making some changes about things that they used to say were bad, and now they've adopted. It's actually part of a series I'm doing. I've released one video. There will be another one out here in a couple days. I don't know if there's a playlist on the channel. There should be. And if not, maybe I'll have to do that before I upload this one. But check out that series if you'd like a little bit more information about why this is so interesting, at least to me, and how they have for years been talking about Babylon the Great, and this is the bad things they do, and here's all the lies, and here's all the deception and the tactics they use. And yet the Jehovah's Witnesses are starting to use those same tactics while simultaneously still talking in this way, which, again, this whole article is about the God of truth. A God of truth would never allow his people to engage in this clownery. He just wouldn't. If there's a God up there and he is standing on business and standing on truth, he would never look at the Jehovah's Witnesses and say, nope, those are my people right there. And then, of course, the article ends with, we're going to be rescued from Satan's world. The paradise is going to be so cool and awesome. Just for the sake of continuity, I've yapped about this before, but still waiting to see when there's a paradise picture with an interracial couple. So I guess we'll see how long it takes for Watchtower to hear my message and finally do it. But when they do, I'll stand up on my chair and wiggle my fingers up in the air. But you kind of know the vibes. I won't talk too much about that anymore. And we're going to jump into the next article, which is Maintain the Right View of Adversity. But before we get into this article, let's just do a little bit of a thought experiment here, just as a bit of a primer, and we'll definitely come back to this. But imagine that there is a situation where someone's on a plane and gets very sick. Oh man, there's change of different color. They start shaking, foaming at the mouth, the whole kit and caboodle. And they do the movie classic. Is there a doctor in the house? Is anybody a doctor? What are we gonna do? And there just so happens to be a doctor there. And he just doesn't say anything. Just puts back in his headphones and takes a nap. Now, come to find out, they go through the flight logs. They find out, oh, that person that died on that flight, there was a doctor there and they didn't say anything. And they interview the doctor, or, they ask some questions like, well, why didn't you do anything? And he said, well, I knew. And he goes and says, hey, this was the thing that he or she was going through, and this is how I would have treated it, and I could have saved their life. And he just looks at the news cameras and say, yeah, I just didn't. I knew how to, but I didn't. But I didn't cause that person to be harmed. I just allowed nature to take its course. What do you want me to do? I was trying to catch a nap, and it's not my fault. Would you see that news broadcast, that interview of that doctor, and immediately start Googling his name so you can become his patient? Would you want, like, oh my God, I want that guy to be my primary care physician? I would trust him with my life. I trust his ability. I trust his decision making, and he will never fail me. He will never let me down. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Maintain the right view of adversity. Let's just pick things up here at the end of paragraph 3. If Jehovah were to fix, it goes and talks about all the problems in the world, natural disasters, man-made catastrophes. If Jehovah were to fix all such problems now, it could seem as though he were helping Satan to run this world. In this system, we cannot help but be affected by calamity. I gotta be honest with you. If God refuses to help people because he wouldn't want to make it seem like he were helping Satan, then what was all that stuff that we heard in the last article about trusting in God and him and Jehovah and him being able to help us and him using the angels to carry out this preaching work and supporting his people? What was all that about? You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, obviously God can't go and fix people's problems. It would look like, he was helping Satan. But also, you can rely and trust on God because he's going to help you through your problems. I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. I guess I'm getting to that age where, hey, if you don't know what the Twilight Zone is, if you're under the age of 30, it's like an episode of Black Mirror. Left is right, up and down, black is white. Who knows what's going on? I literally can't get my head around what they're trying to even say with this whole thing. Well, I mean, it would make it seem as if he were helping Satan. Huh? So God doesn't interfere in people's lives. So it's kind of pointless then to rely on him. But it's going to get a lot worse here. So buckle up into paragraph 5. We go. Jehovah never acts wickedly or tests us with evil things. However, King Solomon wrote that the day of adversity is the work of the true God. As is often the case, the Bible here refers to Jehovah as doing something when he is in fact merely allowing it to happen. So God has a book, the Bible, and it says that he does things. Sometimes good, sometimes he doesn't do things that are great. Even this quote that they give, it's like it says it in the Bible, that the day of adversity is the work of the true God. And they just say, but God was joking. He didn't actually mean that thing that he specifically said. In fact, he was just allowing it to happen. Even though they show an example of him doing something. It's right here. Their explanation for that is God, he made an oopsie. He didn't really understand what he was saying. He had a little bit too much of the sauce. We're over here. We're going to give a little bit of whiteout and correct the situation. The writers of this are speaking for God. They are saying, no. That thing that God said he specifically did, he didn't. He actually meant this. This is what the Bible actually meant to say. Truly baffling. Solomon gave good advice that can help us to have the right view of our trials. First, we need to be realistic about our imperfect life in Satan's world. We will have good days and bad days. When we have a good day, we can show our appreciation for God's goodness and view the day as a gift from him. Second, Solomon reminds us that we cannot be certain of anything that will happen, whether the day will bring us good or adversity. Unexpected problems strike both the righteous and the unrighteous. If we view our trials properly, we will see that Jehovah is teaching us to depend not on ourselves, but on him. Jehovah never fails to notice our trials or to care about our suffering. Even when he allows us to go into the valley of deep shadow, he continues to guide us, to reassure us with his love and give us the strength we need to endure. Adversities can also help us to identify our weaknesses and, with God's help, to refine our personality. For example, Job needed to work on his humility. Jehovah did not cause Job's trial, yet he allowed it and used it to help Job learn valuable lessons. So, a lot to unpack here. First off, let's jump back to the old, the doctor on the plane that we set up for this. And, well, let's actually jump 2 steps back. Remember when it said that Jehovah and Jesus went to war with Satan and threw him to the earth in 1914? He put Satan here, confined him, and said, you guys deal with this. So imagine if that doctor brought whatever made that person sick with him. He was in the lab. I don't know what doctors do. I just picture them in white coats with tubes and stuff. But he was doing stuff with the tubes, and he had something that he knew was catastrophic. He knew it would result in someone dying. And he brought it with him in his carry-on. And before he went to go take a nap, he just opened the thing knowing he was going to be fine. It would only attack someone. I'm lost in the sauce with this example here, but he knew it would only attack a very specific type of someone that only has a certain, gene or something like that. And he goes and does the little interview and says, well, I don't know. Not my problem. I didn't cause it. I only allowed it. Didn't you bring the disease with you? Didn't you cast Satan down to the earth and said, here, pal, there's your playground. I'll see you in a few hundred years. It's so crazy to put the things they say in real language. When you take out all the flowery fluff and the assumptions and how everything just has like a billion things attached to it, and you just look at it as plain, regular old text, just regular human speak, and you put it in those terms, man, I really can understand why people struggle with being religious after they leave the organization. How can someone leave the Jehovah's Witnesses and not also leave religion and God entirely? That's what happened to me. I'm an atheist now, and I think it's very common amongst people. It's a natural fallout, because when you start looking at the God that the Jehovah's Witnesses present, you start asking yourself, would I pick up the phone and call that doctor I saw in the interview that let the person die on the plane and shrugged his shoulders and said I was trying to get a nap, leave me alone, and say, I want them as my primary care physician? I would, if I don't know, I'm getting a little bit up there in age. You got to look at my moles, make sure they're not. This guy has demonstrated and shown he will do the right thing at the right time. I don't understand how someone could come out of the Witnesses and like not be an atheist, because the God that they portray is so evil, so unlikable, and the way that they try and explain things simply doesn't make sense. Like this, Job needed to work on his humility. Wait, what happened to Job? Oh, that's right, his children died. And what did it say at the top of paragraph 6? If we view our trials properly, we will see Jehovah is teaching us to depend not on ourselves, but him. Do you want to get into a healthy relationship with that guy? That guy that will allow someone's children to be killed, to be taken from them, because as it turns out, they needed to learn the lesson of humility, and they needed to learn how to depend on him and not on themselves? Think about what that's going to do. As it's the title of the video, and I know I teased it here at the beginning, but really take a step back and think about what that is going to do to someone's mindset. Imagine that they take all of this that I've just said and they believe it. It is the most important thing in their entire life. They will hold this as more valuable and sacred than their children, their husband or wife, their parents, their brothers, their sisters, even their own life. This is more important than that. And it is this big ball of evil. It just is. There is not a sane person that is going to say, yeah, sometimes God needs to teach us a lesson, like allowing our children to die, even though he could have stopped it, so that way we can learn to rely on him more and not on ourselves. I've never heard that at any other church that I've ever been to, and I don't think that I ever will, because it's crazy. But they can write this in an article because they know Jehovah's Witnesses will accept it. And once, I used to say this as a believing Jehovah's Witness. So it always is curious how I used to think this way, but I just hadn't quite put everything together. But I used to say, as soon as you can convince someone that 2 + 2 is 27, their brain will be open to any manner of just like open up Pandora's box and let that shit go right into their skull. If you can convince someone that 2 + 2 is 27, anything is possible. And I think that that is what the effect is of being a Jehovah's Witness. They have been convinced that the 2 + 2 is 27. And now they can have someone say that this loving God sometimes has to allow us to learn some hard lessons like humility. And the best way of doing that is by allowing that person's children to die. And during that, they need to learn how to be happy and thankful to that God. Now let's look at the last paragraph and then we'll wrap this thing up. Paragraph 12, a wrong view, the last paragraph I'm going to read. I mean, I already read the whole thing, but I'm going to read for you guys. A wrong view of our situation can make us feel that it is worse than it really is. Jesus showed one way that this can happen in his illustration of the workers in the vineyard. Some workers were distressed about what they thought were unfair wages, but the master told one of them, "Fellow, I do you no wrong." The complaint of the workers was based not on an injustice, but on their mistaken expectations. Today, some witnesses have had to battle similar feelings. For example, when they missed out on a privilege of service or had to relinquish one, what practical things can we do to have the right view of a difficult situation? For anyone that's not nerdy Bible person like myself, that illustration that they're talking about in the vineyard, this guy sees that he needs his grapes picked. And so he goes into town and he finds some guys standing in front of Home Depot and is like, "Hey, you guys need some work?" Like, "Yeah, we need some work." He's like, "Okay, I'll give you $1 if you go and pick some grapes." And they said, "Sure, I'll take $1." So they go and they start picking the grapes. And then the guy goes back into town. Ugh, talking too much. The guy goes back into town, sees some more guys standing around. Like, "Hey, do you guys have any work?" And they're like, No, we don't." It's like, "Hey, I got some guys already working on a field. Go and get to work, and I'll pay you whatever's fair." And so then it's an hour before the work is meant to be done. And he goes back into town and he finds more guys. And he's like, "Hey, you guys go into town, or not go into town. You can go help pick the grapes. I'll give you a fair wage." And they're like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll take that." And so it comes time to pay everyone. And the guy gives the $1 that he promised to the people that had been working there for 11 hours. Then he goes to the people that had been working there for just 1 hour. And he also gives them $1. And they're like, "Well, that doesn't seem very fair. They only work for an hour. I worked for 11. Like, what the heck?" And he's like, "Hey, I agreed to pay you $1. It's my money. I can do whatever I want with it." That's the example that they're giving here. And I think it's a really fitting example because I think most people would see a level of injustice. You know, even if it is the person's money, even if it is true, they can just do whatever they want with it. You know, who am I to tell this guy how to spend his denarii? It's still on the surface. It doesn't feel very good for the people that worked 11 hours. I don't see many people being like, "Man, that's kind of cold. I mean, yeah, it's your money, but that's pretty brutal, man." And so witnesses are supposed to learn the example, or what they're supposed to learn from this is that your perception of an injustice is just your perception. And your complaints don't matter. So when you put all of this together, you see a clear picture of people that are taught to actively invalidate their own feelings and their own perception of the world, and to, without question, accept the leadership's telling of the story. We will tell you what are appropriate feelings and thoughts, and we'll tell you what are inappropriate feelings and thoughts. We are going to control not only the way that you think, but the way you feel. And if you feel a certain type of way, remember, it's just like those people in Jesus' illustration. It wasn't up to them to tell the guy how to spend his money, so just because you perceive it as an injustice, ignore that. It's not. So, wondering, what does being a Jehovah's Witness, like, what effect does it have on people? In my experience and what I see in talking to people that are, making an exit out of the organization, it really hinders people's ability to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, to make decisions, to have the confidence to figure their life out without relying on someone else, because that's, especially people born in, they are taught since they're toddlers that they cannot do it. You cannot trust yourself. You shouldn't believe yourself. You can't trust your own feelings. And once you start not being able to trust your own gut feeling or your own ideas or your own perceptions, it is a really difficult thing to learn that in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s, on and on. So it is a really, this article is a really good window. And hopefully, if you've never been a Jehovah's Witness, or you just know people who are leaving and are trying to be supportive of them, hopefully this can give you a little bit of insight and just help to have a little bit of compassion about what someone might be going through. It's easy, and I know I heard it a lot myself when I left, and I would, try and tell people about my experience, and over again I would hear, it's not that big of a deal. You just left your religion. I haven't been to church in 20 years. And you hear that, and man, it burns and it stings. So hopefully just kind of seeing something like this can help just, any average person understand what someone might be going through, because this is how they were taught to think. This morally bankrupt, sick way of thinking is what they did. It's all that they know. And trying to rebuild a life after that is very difficult, and it takes time, and you need friends, and you need some grace. You just do. Anyway, that's about all I got to say for these 2 articles. I will get into the rest of this. There's an article about David Splain's life. It's kind of a swan song for him. I suspect he might be taking a backseat to the other governing body members, but we'll get into that in the next video. Anyway, with all that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. Now go out there and have a good ass day.